Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brett Simpson, on New Rev Radio at newrevradio.com. Today is November 17th, 2011, and I'm here to throw out the news to you, no matter how crazy it sounds. But anyway, I've done a lot of research today, just going over articles, and I never seem to find myself astonished on what I stumble upon. But there is something that I ran across today that made my mouth drop, and I got a chill of my spine, and the hairs on my neck sticking out. I'll tell you what. The headline that I ran across said, "A company uses cells from abortions to test artificial flavors." Insane. You've got to be kidding me. Anyway, I checked it out over at lifenews.com, and I thought I was losing my mind for a minute when I read that, but I've got to tell you guys this. It's the honest God's truth. And I don't know if you ever heard of a movie. This movie's older than I am. It's called Soylent Green. And it's supposed to be in the future. I think it's supposed to be in like 2013, but the movie came out in 1971. And what it was, a company was using people's body parts in food. Well, guys, here we are. 40 years later, it's happening. Company uses cells from abortions to test artificial flavors. This is over at lifenews.com. Let me read you a little bit of this. I will link to this article for you guys to see this, so you know that I'm not blowing smoke. The companies include food giants such as PepsiCo, Kraft, Campbell Soup, Saul and Nestle. Anyway, it says the company Cinemix, what they're doing is they're taking these cells from abortions. It says the company's key flavor programs focus on the discovery of development of savory, sweet, and salt flavor ingredients that are intended to allow for the reduction of MSG, sugar, salt in food and beverage products. The Cinemix website says using isolated human taste receptors is created proprietary taste receptor based on assay systems that provide a biochemical or electronic readout when the flavor ingredient interacts with the receptor. What the company don't tell you or tell the public is that they are using HEK 293. Now, if you don't know what this is, please look it up. That is HEK 293. It is a human embryonic kidney cells taken from electively aborted babies to produce those receptors. They could have easily chosen animal, insect, or morally obtained human cells expressing the G protein for taste receptors. But my God, guys, this, to me, looks like the Twilight Zone. Here is the link to that article. Well, there you go. Here is the link to that article for you to look at it yourself. Please make sure and put this on your websites. Make a YouTube video about it. Make people well aware of what kind of nightmarish proportions we're facing here. This is insane. You know, I mean, I thought aspartame was bad, but for God's sakes, guys. Anyway, discussions tonight on this topic and many others. The call-in number is 323-319-6470. 323-319-6470. Or just add New Rev Radio on Skype and Skype us. But on to the next story, which, I mean, if that isn't bad enough, of course, we all know about the crooks in the fiat money game system that is happening worldwide. Well, a public figure, Gerald Celente, this guy does trends research. He's been doing this for years. He's a public figure. I'm sure many of you know who he is. He was ripped off along with the MF Global situation this last week. I want to link to this article. I found it over on the Examiner, but not only that, I watched him on RT News. I believe it was yesterday, and he got scammed out of like $150,000, along with several other investors, in the sum total probably right around $600 million. It says here in the article on the Examiner.com, Gerald Celente loses gold futures account to MF Global theft. An interview with Russia Today on November 14th, economist and trends forecaster. Well, I apologize, guys. I said, well, I seen it yesterday. I seen him on RT News yesterday. But I guess the interview was actually conducted on the 14th of November. But anyway, it says economist and trends forecaster Gerald Celente became the newest victim of the MF Global bankruptcy when his gold futures account was taken by trustees and he was hit with a margin call days within the corporate shutdown. Interview for RT, I believe this Gerald talking is, this RT asking Gerald Celente. Says, I have to ask you about this MF Global thing because it appears you were caught in the crossfire. Gerald Celente replies back, I really got burned. I got a call last Monday and I have an account with Lynn Waldock. Yeah, Waldock. And I've been trading gold since 1978 and have a very simple strategy. As you well know, I've been very bullish on gold for many years. So I was building up my account to take delivery on a contract, which I remember he is saying the December contract coming due, and he is going to take delivery of that. But anyway, it said, and got a call Monday. And they said that I needed to have a margin call, and I said, well, what are you talking about? I've got a ton of money in my account. They responded, oh, no, you don't. That money's with the trustee now. But there's a bunch of people got ripped off, and Gerald Celente is just one of them. It says Gerald Celente's trouble, along with clients who lost millions of dollars in holdings when MF Global allegedly used their money to invest for the company in toxic euro assets. Global financial system that is no longer distinguishes between individual accounts and corporate accounts. So basically, they just took everyone's money and invested into toxic accounts without even their permission or anything. Just done whatever they wanted, and the money is gone. I know that they've been trying to reach the company, but no one's getting any answers or anything else, but I'm glad. Now, I know this sounds sick, but I'm kind of glad it happened to a public figure. I apologize, Freebird. I'll make sure and link to that article about Gerald Celente. I just got so into talking about it and wasn't looking at the chat room. I do apologize. Here, I'll post this article right here. Some odd reason there's a little bit of delay or something. There we go. But it's insane. The reason why I'm back to the public figure deal, the reason why I'm happy it happened to a public figure is because it will be pushed and brought out more on the scams that's happening. If it were just a simple individual like myself, who's not so much a public figure, it would get swept under it would get swept under the rug. Anyway, going back to more articles, we know that things are ramping up again, and I know I always talk about wars and stuff like that, but people really need to keep their eyes open on what's being said out there, because it apparently does look like the globalists are trying to ramp us up for World War III. And one of the key reasons that I think this is because I'm finding articles every day either about China, Russia, United States, or Israel. And all of them, except for, I think China just keeps saying they're angry. It takes a lot for China to step up and say war. But Russia, they'll do it in a heartbeat, and so will the U.S. But I found an article on the Associated Press, or Propaganda Press, in Yahoo News. It says, Russian military chief, war risks have grown. In Moscow, Associated Press, or Propaganda Press, Russia's chief military officer says the nation is facing an increased threat of being drawn into conflicts as its borders may grow into an all-out nuclear war. When was the last time we heard stuff like that? All-out nuclear war? And me in the chat room, I'm not talking about myself, but me, you're right. I believe Gerald Celente lost in the total sum of approximately $150,000. Don't quote me on that, but if you research it, I believe that's what it was, $150,000. But going back to this article, yeah, that's exactly what it says. Increased threat of being drawn into a conflict at its borders that may grow into an all-out nuclear war. Russia said it. General Nikolai Makarov, chief of the General Staff, pointed at NATO's expansion eastward and said Thursday that the risks for Russia to be pulled into local conflicts have risen sharply. He added, according to Russian news agencies' wires, that under certain conditions, local and regional conflicts may develop into a full-scale war involving nuclear weapons. At the steady decline of Russia's conventional forces has prompted the Kremlin to rely increasingly on nuclear deterrent. Its military doctrine says it may use nuclear weapons to counter a nuclear attack on Russia or an ally. Well, we already know their ally is Iran. Or a large-scale conventional attack that threatens Russia's existence. Keep your eyes to what's going on over there, guys. They're going to have you keep looking at Wall Street. Now, we got to pull together and make sure and look out for one another by giving each other information. And I believe that's my sole purpose, is to put out the information for you to review yourselves and to share with friends, family, YouTubers, people would go to your websites. And you're right, me. I think the last time I had heard Russia and the United States talking about any kind of nuclear conflict was in the 1980s, during the Cold War. I think what has happened is people have forgotten how devastating a nuclear war would be. It doesn't take very many nuclear weapons to cause an all-out nuclear winter where it blocks out the sun for 6 months. I believe, I should have researched this, but I believe it only takes about 20 altogether. And we have thousands of nuclear weapons. So does Russia. Probably a lot more than we even know. Not even telling us. And with the technology that we have nowadays, we don't, well, our militaries, let's say, don't need nuclear weapons. But of course, that's what they want. They want to depopulation so they can control 500 million of us, so they can enslave us with their new world currency. We see the collapse coming. It's quite obvious. I found another article today over at Yahoo News. More propaganda for us. You know, you could pretty much see where they're trying to steer us. You know, just in London today, okay, this article was put in Yahoo News finance section, but it was actually by the New York Times by Landon Thomas Jr. It says the rise of the Euro Doomsayer. The Eurozone was unraveling just as he long predicted, yet Bernard Connolly, Europe's most persistent prophet of doom, still faced a skeptical audience. The current policy of lending plus austerity will lead to social unrest, Mr. Connolly told investors and policymakers at the conference held in this spring in Los Angeles by the Milken Institute, arguing that the case of Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain could not simply cut their way to recovery. And one should not forget that one of the four countries we're talking about all have had civil wars, fascist dictatorships, and revolutions. That is history, he concluded. His voice rising above the chortles and gas coming from the audience and the European on his panel. And that is the future of the malignant lunacy of a monetary union is pursued and crushes these countries into the ground. I'll make sure and link over to that article. I just found it quite interesting, but we've got a lot of things going on here. I just figure I'd throw out the finances situation or the financial situation going on. I'm looking over in the chat room and I see me growing up. That was your biggest fear. You know what? Honestly, I remember when I was a kid, going back to the nuclear threat thing. There was a movie that I watched, I think I was in like 5th grade or something. It was called The Day After or something like that. and it was an all-out nuclear war between Russia and the United States. I was so scared that I went out back. Now, mind you, I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, and I started digging a hole. I started digging a hole in the ground. I got my ass beat. Excuse my language. But, yeah, I was pretty scared. I started digging a hole out back behind my house. Because, I thought that I was going to build a bomb shelter myself, since we didn't have one. I just thought I'd throw that out to you guys. Thought it was, pretty funny. Now I look back. But now that I'm thinking again, maybe I should go out back again and start digging a hole. I don't know. But I mean, who would really want to live through a all-out nuclear exchange between Russia, China, and the United States? It wouldn't take but probably a few bombs over in the UK to just wipe them out. I mean, that would be total devastation. In the United States, they only hit probably 4 or 5 big cities, i.e. New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, I don't know, Dallas, maybe one other. I mean, it would take out probably well above 10% of our population immediately, not to mention the nuclear fallout. Oh, I apologize about that. I'm not moving away from the mic slider. I'm just wondering. Well, you guys already know about all the protests that's going on in different cities across the United States and throughout the world. There is one key person that I've seen that done a speech with Occupy Chicago protesters. I've been trying to warn about this guy, and he's a radical himself. Talking about the same professor. This guy is a professor. He was involved with Weather Underground back in the 60s and early 70s, and SDS, which is another radical group. I believe SDS stands for Students for a Democratic Society or something like that. This guy's name is Bill Ayers. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bill Ayers, but I've studied this guy for a few years now, including he was the first person to contribute to Barack Obama's running for the United States, or for the President of the United States. Anyway, going to the article over at NBC Chicago, I apologize about that. It says, controversial professor Bill Ayers speaks with Occupy Chicago protesters. Controversial activist, professor, and author Bill Ayers was videotaped recently giving advice about nonviolent protesting to Occupy Chicago protesters. Filmed last month by Education Action Group, EAG-TV, and posted their YouTube page. The video shows Ayers teaching a group of protesters in a teach-in. Now, I've been saying all along, guys, that this movement was hijacked. It was hijacked from the get-go. Now, there's good people out there with good intentions. But then you have people like this who are known radical, who believes in revolutions in order to create their own type of society, which I'll explain here in a minute. Going back to the article, Ayers made headlines in 2008 when his connection to then candidate Barack Obama were crystallized, perhaps most notably by Sarah Palin, who accused Obama of palling around with terrorists, which is true. During the teach-in, Ayers preached inclusion. When asked if violence was necessary to increase the Occupy movement, Ayers tells his listeners violence is not the answer. Instead, protesters should use their brilliance, humor, wisdom, and body to dramatize the violence that exists. Now, what he say behind the scenes, I don't know. He went on to say, we do not live in a neutral, nonviolent, not when there's $1 trillion military budget, the biggest in the world. Not when they were recruiting kids to be in the service. Not when the athletic event begins with guns and marching. That's a violent culture, and that is where we live, says Ayers. But I'm going to post this article up to you guys about Bill Ayers so you can see for yourself who I'm talking about. Yeah, this guy is evil, plain and simple, just pure evil. There's an article, he says, William Ayers' forgotten communist manifesto, Prairie Fire. Go to that article and tell you a little bit about it. William Ayers is a communist, but don't take my word for it. He said so himself. In this line, it says, we are a guerrilla organization. We are communist women and men underground in the United States for more than 4 years. And not some nicey-nice peace and love kind of communist. Through this group, whether underground, Ayers was planning to seize power in a violent communist takeover of the United States. You guys really need to read up on this guy. And this was back in October of 2008. This was written up. I feel it's my job to tell you about this man. Here you go. And yes, Mike, he was on the FBI list for most wanted, and I will make sure and post that article as well. It was tied in with the bombing of the Capitol, the Pentagon, and I believe it was a police station. Let me see. Yeah, his quote back in the 60s, kill all the rich people, bring the revolution home, kill your parents. He also, he participated in the bombings of the New York City Police Headquarters in 1970, the Capitol Building in 71, and the Pentagon in 72. And then worked as a professor of education at the University of Illinois from 87 until last year, 2010. Just imagine this. You send your kid off to college to be educated by a radical. That's right, Mike. Here's the article for you guys to check out yourselves. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research as well. I'm just trying to put out the best information I can possible as, one man, Also make sure and research Saul Alinsky. I'll give you a little research on Saul Alinsky. Real good guy, believed in revolutions. Wrote a book, Rules for Radicals, which is still being in use today. I've read it myself. Check it out if you get a chance, please. Now on to the medical. Did you know that they're saying that 1 in 4 American women take medication for a mental disorder? 1 in 4. And just imagine all the chemicals that they put out or put in these products. But this is over at the Mail Online. And before I go into any further, I want to give you guys the number for you to call in and discuss any of the articles, especially the very first one that I talked about to you guys, the one where the company uses cells from abortions to test artificial flavors and Pepsi, amongst many others. The call-in number is 323-319-6470, 323-319-6470. My name's Brett Simpson on New Rev Radio at newrevradio.com. Or you could just add us in your Skype, New Rev Radio, and Skype in, Give us a call on your Skype. But going back to the article, 1 in 4 American women taking medication for mental disorder. It says women are more likely than men to take antipsychotic drugs, according to the new report. Most often prescribed females over 45, which, come on, honestly, guys, let's say a woman's going through the change of life. Of course she's going to be emotional. But these docs, or doctors, or quack nuts, get paid off by the big pharmaceutical companies to push these crazy drugs on people. And they get paid off to do this. They get little bonuses from the big pharma companies, to push this stuff on people. And I've even seen on commercials on TV where some of these antidepressants can actually cause you to become suicidal. But going back to the article at Mail Online, says prescriptions for psychiatric problems in adults have risen 22% since 2001. Now, it makes you wonder, when they give you all this good news about what's going on in the world and they want everyone scared to death, well, I mean, could that attribute? But yet we're going to be called terrorists. We have people that's dining at the Pentagon who were paid terrorists, such as Anwar al-Awlaki. I believe it was like 2 months after 9/11. But yet he is on FBI's 10 most wanted list, and they're going to have him dining with top brass at the Pentagon. And then they tell you to be aware of the terrorists. Now, I could go on and on about that, but I'm going to get back to this article. I apologize for my rambling. Usage has quadrupled among men aged between 20 and 64 over the last decade as well. It says more than 1 in 4 American women took at least one drug for conditions like anxiety and depression last year, according to analysis of prescription data. The report by Pharmacy Benefits Manager Medco Health Solutions found that the use of drugs for psychiatric and behavioral disorders in all adults rose 22% from 2001. Then it has a graph on this article showing the men and women how much they've risen, etc. But my God, I'll tell you what, if you're ever depressed, I'll tell you what to do. Get up and just start exercising. That will increase the hormones in your body, the serotonin level, things of that sort. Do it more in a natural way. Don't let these guys get you on those prescription medicines, because another thing that they don't talk to you about, is that once you get on these drugs, you can't just quit them. You can't just drop them and walk away. You have to be weaned off these drugs. And here, I was discussing a little bit ago about Russia saying that we could possibly going into a all-out nuclear conflict. Well, at the same time, on the 15th, it's showing Israel launches new missile that can reach New York and Tokyo. Excuse me. This is Pack Alert Press where this was found. I've never heard of Pack Alert Press. But going on into the article, it says Israeli men conducted a successful launch of Jericho 3 intercontinental ballistic missile on Wednesday. The test was carried out by Palmyra Air Base, the Irish Times said. At the same time, officials with Israel Defense Forces said that they had conducted tests of a new missile engine in the morning of November 2nd. The launch of the missile could be seen from Ashkelon to Tel Aviv. According to publications in the media, the three-stage missile is capable of delivering 750-kilo warhead at a distance of more than 10,000 kilometers. If the reports about the range of Jericho 3 are true, in fact, then it means that the missile can reach such cities as Tokyo and New York. The distance between the two cities and Tel Aviv makes up more than 9,000 kilometers. According to Western sources, Israel passed Jericho 3 missile into service in 2008. However, the work of the project still continues, MissileThreat.com says. According to the publication, the takeoff weight of the missile takes up to 29 tons. The missile is 15.5 meters long. The website says, in addition to the 750-kilo warhead, a Jericho 3 is capable of carrying out multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. Even though Jericho 3 is designed for deep underground basing, it will be possible to launch a missile from mobile platforms, including railway platforms. The high speed of the missile makes it practically invincible for interception. It's pretty interesting here, guys. Looks like they're basically just flexing their muscle. Post that article up for you guys to check it out. Going on, it looks like, I'm sure you probably already know about this, the Marine base for Australia It was announced the other day. Well, now China's saying something about it. It says, Obama addresses troops at final stop in Australia. In Darwin, Australia, fresh from announcing an expanded military presence in Australia, which we should not be there, a plan has angered China. President Obama came to the remote northern town that will be the base of operations and told American and Australian troops it was a perfect place. We are deepening our alliance, and this is a perfect place to do it, said Mr. Obama, speaking in an Air Force hangar, about 2,000 people, mostly Australian troops in green camouflage uniforms, but with about 55 American Marines salted among them. The region has some of the busiest sea lanes in the world. Wow, we're really expanding our military-industrial complex, aren't we? I'll post that article and let you guys check it out for yourself. I think it's quite ridiculous that we got to be going into Australia now. All it is a power grab. That's all it is, guys. Now, I hadn't had any calls tonight, but I want to take calls after our break in 7 minutes. I'll be taking a break in 7 minutes, but I want to take your calls, and I want to get a round table going here. I want to know what you think of these articles that I've talked about this evening, especially the very disturbing one that I've found that I keep bringing up is the company using cells from abortions to test artificial flavors. I mean, that's clear Soylent Green. If you've ever seen the movie, if you haven't, make sure and check it out. Insane stuff. Putting aborted babies basically in our food and eating them. Yum, yum. I don't know. A lot of you people didn't know about it. I didn't know about it. I just found it strange. Well, I've been talking about Syria. The United States made sure that Musharraf, or whatever his name was thrown out of Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood took over there. Then after Libya, after Gaddafi was killed, they started flying the Al-Qaeda flag there. It's a perfect setup for World War III. And I believe the United States knows exactly what it's doing. And I expect Israel to take out the nuclear facilities here soon. And then, of course, they'll have the armies marching in from them in the south. And Iran from the north, and good old Russia coming in from, Iran from the east, I apologize. Then Iran from Russia from the north, and Iran to the east. Then the United States will get pulled into it. You can guarantee it. Because we love to get involved in every daggone war possible, it seems. Or actually start wars. But there's a U.S. plot to wage war in Syria revealed. This was put out by Press TV. Thursday, November 17, 2011. It says, informed sources in Syria say that they have discovered a prefabricated U.S. scenario for the country's future, seeking to wage war against the nation from various fronts, Press TV reports. Sources said U.S. strategy includes attacks on Syrian diplomatic missions abroad. According to American scenario, the Syrian opposition abroad would engage in taking over the country's diplomatic missions and use them as bases for directing and carrying out terrorist activities within the country. Now, I believe Al-Qaeda, actual name for Al-Qaeda is the base. So you can almost bet on it, guys. The U.S. plan is set up to refer Syria to UN's Human Rights Commission in the General Assembly on November 23rd, as well as the International Criminal Court, in an effort to formally declare the Damascus government as a war criminal, sources say. The American scenario also provides the role for Turkey and NATO defense ministers meeting, and Ankara would be commissioned to move its forces across the Syrian border in effort to establish a buffer zone inside Syria to facilitate the supply of weaponry and arms to the so-called Contra forces inside the country and trigger insurgency activities and potentially a civil war across the nation. Wahhabi insurgents based in Syrian city of Tripoli would then launch attacks on the borders of the country. Moreover, the Syrian sources said the U.S. scheme provides that the Israeli regime, along with Jordan, would also declare their readiness to engage in military operations against Damascus. The latest discovery comes as Arab League announced the suspension of Syria during an emergency session in the Egyptian capital of Cairo on Saturday and called the imposition sanctions against Syria. Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Ali Malham, has described the AL decision illegitimate and dangerous. The Arab League has proposed to dispatch an observer mission of 30 of 50 members to Syria and supposed effort to end unrest in the country. I will grab this article and let you guys check it out for yourself. Here it is. And I'm going to take a break, and I'll be back in, I'd say, probably 8 minutes or so. Again, I'll be taking call-ins at 323-319-6470, 323-319-6470, here at New Rev Radio at newrevradio.com. And you can add us on as well on Skype, New Rev Radio. But I'm taking a break, and I'll be back here in just a few.